made the video a couple days ago, obviously venting, obviously like just blown away at yet another mystery on my old simple mechanical injection system. Now, when I made the video, I was worn out because at that time the pump shop was kind of like everybody else, like, oh, don't know, man, I guess just try this, right? See what happens. But to their credit, the pump shop called me back unsolicited and he said, man, I was thinking about your truck the other night. Kid you not, maybe he's making this up, but he says, I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking about your truck. He said, it just doesn't make sense. Now, they had talked with me at length on the phone when I made that last video. Obviously, didn't want to have the whole phone conversation with them, but I called them back and challenged them, and I said, why is it that every mechanic I talk to is telling me that I have an oil lubricated pump, and you guys are the only ones telling me that I have a diesel lubricated pump? Everyone else tells me that oil line belongs there. You tell me it does not. I finally got a logical answer. Now, again, I'm not a pump specialist. I'm not a mechanic. But what I look for is an answer that makes sense. And if it makes sense to me and you can explain it to me, you know, then okay, that's fine. Anyway, so they said, okay, listen, on the 3306, throughout its early vintage, whatever, there were 3 different fuel pumps. There was the A model, there was the SM model, which stands for sleeve metering, which is what I have, and then there was the B model. The A model, and in that order, the A model and the B model both were oil lubricated. The SM was not. It was diesel lubricated. So because I have the SM, I am diesel lubricated. The oil line is not needed to the pump. Now, the mechanic that took the pump off and put the pump back on, to his credit, he said, Tom, I hooked it up the way it was. Maybe by some fluke, because he also replaced that line from the block up to the pump. So maybe by some fluke, that old line had swollen internally and it wasn't actually letting oil get up to the pump. Maybe it was blocked off or plugged off somewhere, who knows. Or maybe something did happen at the pump shop where they acknowledged what type of pump I had and they put on just a slightly different cover or case or something. I don't know. But they delivered back to the mechanic a pump that looked exactly like the one he took off as far as bolt holes, alignment, ports, plugs, all this and that and the other, right? So he hooked it back up the way it was. Anyway, so I'm back on the phone with the shop and he says, we finally found, well, so when I was on the phone the other day with them, they said in some instances there is an oil line that runs to the pump. And they said it was if you had a timing advance on your timing gear, sometimes Cat was putting an oil line to the pump and the oil wasn't actually going to lubricate the pump, but the oil was going through the nose of the pump into the crankcase. And it was just to apply a little extra oil to that timing advance. You know, naturally, the oil just gets slung up on the timing gears and that's good enough. But for a while they thought, hey, let's put a little extra up there. It's not going to hurt anything. You know, without it, it's probably okay, but again, not going to hurt. So they said, if you have an advance on your timing gear, then it would make sense that an oil line needs to be there somewhere, right? Because that was the question that the pump shop brought up. They said, okay, we're telling you with absolute 100% certainty the oil line does not go where it's hooked up on the pump. But then where should it go? You know, and like I said, to their credit, they brought up that question. Something's not getting oil like it's supposed to. So we're thinking it through, and again, they said if you have a timing advance, that would make sense. So I called the mechanic that put it on. I said, when you were in that crankcase, was there an advance? No, your truck didn't have a timing advance. Okay, so without the timing advance, the oil line is not necessary. So let's just block it off. We can't figure out where it's supposed to go, but everything seems to be working fine. You know, he hooked it back up where it was. Now, and I've never moved it. So, was it hooked up wrong years ago by whoever owned the truck before? Who knows? Doesn't matter. So, the pump shop now calls me back yesterday and he says, we might have found it. He said, even though your truck is not oil lubricated, your injector pump, and you do not have the advance, those pumps were a very generic body, essentially. So he said, on the nose of your pump, down underneath, and I haven't confirmed this yet, but he said he found a diagram that shows this. Right behind the tattletale line, the weep hole, he said there should be a port where you can hook up an oil line. And maybe just by some wild chance, it has the same pipe threads as where the oil line is currently hooked in. And he said, even though you don't have an advance, the oil line is still hooked up there. It pumps oil in through the nose of the pump. It'll lubricate the shaft a little bit, though not necessary. But it's not lubricating all the cams and the plungers and everything in the pump. Not supposed to be there. But it's letting that oil just run through the nose of the pump, back into the crankcase. You know, adding a little bit of extra oil to your timing gears. If you had an advance, it would be oiling the advance. But without an advance, it doesn't hurt anything. If you block it off, probably not going to hurt anything. So, again, to their credit, he said maybe that's what it is. Basically, it's a dummy oil line. You know, that's at least an explanation. And that's what I was looking for. I mean, I'm badgering these guys. I feel like I'm badgering them. And, you know, and they probably hate me for it. But again, that's just, like, if you can't tell me why it is the way it is, then I can't hardly accept that answer of just, that's the way it is. So, this is a logical enough answer. Unfortunately now, I'm out of town for like 10 more days. So all I want to do is go look at my truck. Like, I just want to go look at it and just see if that extra port is there and if it's just blocked off. And if it is, we'll just yank that oil line off there, or I'll move the oil line and hook it up there, right? It's not going to hurt. But I can't go look at my truck, and I'm darn sure not leaning on the shop that did the transmission to go out there and give me any sort of correct answer, because there's a lot of expletives and other not nice words that I would define them by, so I won't. But they're not touching my truck. I can't justify paying another mechanic his, you know, hourly rate to drive out there and go, yep, there's a port there. So now I'm just gonna have to wait, which is driving me crazy. But anyway, like I said, I just wanted to give that update. The last video, I know, was long-winded and it was a rant, and I mostly wanted to share that video to give you guys an update on everything I've been through, but also because, you know, maybe somebody out there is fighting the same battle as me. You put yourself in my shoes. I like to explain, obviously, the process that I've been through, the troubleshooting process. I like troubleshooting. So, maybe now we have an answer that makes sense. Maybe it was just a fluke that the old oil line was hooked up wrong and it was plugged or something, and now it's not because he replaced it, and it just needs to be taken off. And I'm okay with that. So, this is the intro. When I get out there and diagnose the truck, I'm going to add on to this video and show you exactly what we find. So stay tuned. All right, we're back out here working on Wilbur. And I figure since I'm going to do another oil change, I'll just show you guys how. It's not complicated at all, but I wanted to show you this hose and that fitting that we think we've troubleshooted to be the problem. So here's the hose. I've gone ahead and blocked off the end of it, and it just goes down underneath the pump there. You can kind of see it wiggling down there inside the engine, or inside the cavity. It just goes down under the pump and ties right into the back of the crankcase. So it's definitely an oil line, and it was hooked up right there underneath of the bleeder where you see that new silver shiny cap. When I sit there and pump my hand prime's right here, of course that line squirts out diesel because my pump is a diesel lubricated pump, which maybe that wasn't the source of contamination, but it darn sure was a source. Maybe it wasn't the only one, but we're thinking it probably is. This hose, this one, sorry, that I disconnected and plugged off, we cannot figure out where it's supposed to go. But the best answer that I've been able to get from talking to the pump specialist and a few other people is that maybe it was sort of an auxiliary line that Caterpillar put on here in the case that you might have a timing advance. So it would just help lubricate the timing advance even though it doesn't have to be there. That's the hope, because that's the plan. We're going to block it off and just leave it. I hate having things not hooked up necessarily the way they're supposed to be, but to get to the bottom end of that hose, I would pretty much have to pull the fuel pump back off to be able to get in there and try to actually take it off and put a plug in it. So for now, at least as a test, which means if it works, it'll be permanent, we're just going to blank it off. So now I got to get in there and do an oil change, which I'll just crawl under there and just show you guys. It's very, very simple.